Chapter 1 Reborn. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Huff huff huff. I swallowed a large drop of saliva as I ran through the battlefield. Mud coated my steel boots. Bloodstains were washed off my chest plate by the downpour of rain. The gauntlets I wore were so thick I could barely feel the spear in my right hand and the large wooden shield in my left. The shield was rimmed with metal, but that was just to reinforce the build, and I don't think the creators considered how powerful our foes would be. I blocked the first sword with my metal spear, but the impact was so hard that the vibration ran throughout my entire body. Arg! I shout as I smash my shield into the man's steel helmet, knocking him off of me. But that was all it did. Just knock him off of me. Two more men came from behind me, their swords raised above their heads. As the other person I had knocked away was recovering and now charging towards me, I used this chance to step back and watch the three men accidentally clash against each other. Arg! What are you doing? One of the men shouts as his sword digs into the other man's shoulder. Blood drained from the wound, muddling with the muddy ground. The three men began to argue like the idiots they were, and when they had finally decided to team up on me, I was already gone. Splash splash, my boots kicked through the bloody mud. The foul stench of corpses didn't just linger in my nostrils, it filled my entire sinuses as if it was air. I couldn't help but throw up at the smell. It was a smell I had smelt quite a lot. But that didn't make it any better. There was no getting used to the smell. I blocked another sword that came swinging down with such force that it dented my spear, bending it slightly. The vibration stunned my body for a split second, allowing another man to swing his sword down into my thigh. I was forced to kneel as the men above me smiled psychotically. And with another downward swing, they intended to take my life. I brought up my wooden shield, my eyes seemingly completely devoid of life even though I was still standing up, alive. The soldiers noticed my dead eyes as my shield failed to block the sword in time. My head was split in half. The last sight that I saw was the chilled soldiers running away to attack another one of my comrades. In the year 431, I had died on the battlefield. No kills. No assists. Nothing. I mean, at least I died with nothing. I didn't even really have regrets. That I just died, like every other soldier on the battlefield. Our general was a jackass. I hope he died as well against those monsters. Those weren't human beings. They barely had armor, yet nobody could draw a single drop of blood from them. When I blocked one of their hits, it felt as if their sword had cut straight through my shield, cutting my body in half. When I went to stab one of them with my spear, the tip bounced off of their skin as if it were made of metal. Well, I had a good life. I think. Psi. Nu Alpha, suddenly, I appeared in a black plane. The sky was black. The surface beneath me was black. It was like an endless abyss where you could easily lose yourself if you stared long enough. Maybe this is where the dead reside. It's peaceful, away from life-threatening diseases. Away from bloody war. Away from the battle-crazed idiots. Away from the crazy religious heretics. My bad, force of habit, a warm voice calls out to me. I felt a strange yearning towards it, and just as I was about to turn my head, I felt my body float up. Feeling weightless was nice. It was like the best bed in the world. Come on, spirit, don't sleep, the voice says again. I went to turn my head but felt a strange blockage. It felt as if somebody was keeping my head from turning with their hand. Okay, almost there. But I do have to say, you don't have much karma at all. Very little bad karma, very little good karma. What were you doing with your life? It sounded like a rude remark, but the voice was clearly being sentimental, as if it was worried for me. I don't know. Not much, really. I was drafted into a war of which I had no business being a part of. I'm a tiny bit sad I died so emptily, but I guess that's just how it goes. Well, I wish you good luck in your next life, little spirit. I hope you manage to achieve great things. A warm hand pats my head as I drift off into the land of dreams. VWOM clink clink clink. I appeared in a gray stone room and could identify it immediately. A prison, I tried to mutter, but no words came out of my mouth but a quiet, "Ga." I was confused, but it was quickly redirected as soon as I saw a soft young woman pressing her cheek against my chest. Her dark purple hair was long and fluffy like a dog. "Ga." Another sound came out of my mouth as soon as I saw her retreat and pulled down her tattered brown dress. "Come on, you have to eat," she says in a gentle voice, pulling my head up with her soft, gentle hand. But I didn't even notice her words as I was stunned by her beautiful purple eyes and clear pale skin. "Come on, eat, eat," she says, ushering my eyes towards her chest. "Ga," I say, reeling my head back. I squeezed my eyes shut and pulled back my head, displaying clear discomfort, but I quickly began to regret denying her request upon seeing her cry. Big drops of salty water dropped onto my face before I relaxed my body. "Please. Please, eat. Please, my son," she begs, her tears dripping down her cheeks and then onto down mine. I give in and lift my head up. "Thank you. I promise I'll give you a better life. Just please stay with me forever." "Please," she mutters, but I couldn't give a response even if I could talk as she fell asleep right then and there. Her head hung, eyes closed, tears drying up on her cheeks. Red marks were left as soon as the tears were gone. I didn't like how the marks stained her beautiful face, so I went up to try and rub them with my stubby fat arms. But just as I was about to touch her soft cheeks, she woke up, grabbing my hand instinctively. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry," she pleaded as if she had done something wrong. She rubbed her red cheeks against the back of my hand, somehow soothing me. My eyes felt heavy. My stomach was full. I was warm. I felt loved by the woman above me, my mother. It was such a different feeling compared to the misery in my past life. Maybe this one wasn't as bad. "Wake up. It's dinner time." A loud voice shouted, interrupting my peaceful slumber. Somebody was banging a metal spoon against a plate all the way to our prison cell, and once they arrived, they shoved the plate through the little hatch in between the bars. The food on the plate fell on the dirty, cold, stone floor, forcing my mom to grab the scraps of meat and bread off of it. How the strong have fallen," the man who brought the food says before spitting on my mother, who had her head lowered. Her eyes reminded me of mine, dead. Absolutely dead on the inside but living on the outside. The only time she seemed alive was when she was taking care of me, feeding me, teaching me small, insignificant things that she knew I still couldn't comprehend. "It's okay, don't cry, baby," my mother says as she crawls over to me and picks me up, completely ignoring the food that she had just gathered. Am I crying? It's okay. I'll make sure you don't die. I want you to grow up strong like mommy here, she mutters, revealing her chest once more. I was starving. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay, she mutters over and over. From what I could observe, it looked as if she was not only consoling me, but herself as well. Another day had passed, and I awoke on the cold stone floor, my mother nowhere to be seen. Calmly, I rolled my body upward so where I could sit on my bottom. It took a few tries to stay upwards, but I scanned the room once I had it down. Nothing, oh, there's the chain my mother's leg is connected to. I then followed the chain behind my back, where I twisted my chubby body. There was a strange circle with a star in the middle, and right inside that star was my mother, on her knees chanting something strange. Mu epsilon tau omicron nu pi alpha nu tau omicron delta dot nu alpha mu omicron mu dot gamma omicron, sigma omicron upsilon pi alpha rho alpha chi omega rho. Tau eta mu iota sigma. mu omicron upsilon delta dot nu alpha mu eta kappa alpha iota tau eta mu epsilon tau alpha beta iota beta dot zeta omega sigma tau omicron nu gamma iota omicron mu omicron upsilon mu alpha kappa dot rho iota nu alpha pi epsilon tau dot chi epsilon iota eta delta iota kappa alpha sigma dot alpha mu epsilon tau eta nu psi upsilon chi kappa alpha iota tau omicron alpha dot mu alpha tau omega nu pi rho omicron gamma dot nu omega nu mu omicron upsilon. Mother chanted, and once she had finished, she fainted. Worried, I shifted over to her, but the magic circle erupted into a blood-red light. A system is being chos. Interference by higher being, error, authority is insuffici. Error, authority is sufficient, your God has been selected, your system has been granted, Ares system is being installed, host has been put to sleep for a smooth procedure. Chapter 2 System. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Authority is sufficient, your God has been selected, your system has been granted, Ares system is being installed, host has been put to sleep for a smooth procedure. My eyelids grew heavy, and I felt extremely dizzy, causing me to roll onto my back. I tried to cover my eyes from the bright stone emitting light towards the top right corner of the prison cell. I mutter before passing out. Ares system has been installed, please say, status. In order to get started, my eyes snapped open, but when I tried to sit up, I just felt my body roll up and then backward like a doll made of wood. My head hit something soft, and I realized I was lying in my sleeping mother's lap. Flashbacks of before I passed out flipped through my mind. And once everything had passed, I snapped back to reality. What the hell is that? In front of me were two red rectangles with bright white text that almost blinded me. I squinted my eyes before reading it. It was confusing, even when I had finished reading all of it. I had absolutely no clue as to what a system was. Context could have been useful, but I decided to move on for now. I had absolutely no idea what saying status would do, so of course, I said it in order to find out. Came out of my mouth, but in my mind, I said, status. Status, name. None, race. Human, level. 1/10, 0/100, XP needed, HP, 10/10 MP 5/5 SP 5/5. Normal human, strength 0.1. Subhuman, defense 0.1. Subhuman, magic. 0. Normal human, speed 0.1. Subhuman, skills. None. My eyes scanned the large vertical rectangle in front of me, and this, I kind of understood. My race was obviously human. The level, I don't really understand that. HP, MP, and SP I also don't understand. Strength was most likely how strong I was. And somehow, it was negative. The same thing with defense and speed. Also, both were pretty much self-explanatory. But magic, like magic in fairy tales, where you can create fireballs, an armory made of water, shoot lightning from your hands, control the weather with your mind. That kind of magic. I was very intrigued by the magic section but decided to move on downwards to the next thing called, skills. I also had a hypothesis as to what this was, but nothing to really branch off of. And then, there was my name. I had avoided the subject yesterday and the day before, but now I had to face it as it was glaring right into my eyes. I have no name. And though I didn't want to think about it, I knew the reason as to why I wasn't given one. My mother didn't want to get too attached to me in case I died. Our living conditions were extremely harsh, and she knew that if she slipped up once, both of us could die without any notice at all. I say once again, waking up my mother from her peaceful nap. Are you hungry, baby? She asks before pulling down her tattered brown dress. The material rubbed against my skin, but it felt like sandpaper instead of actual cloth. As I looked up at my mother's beautiful face, I noticed red tears marks on her cheeks once again, notifying me that she had cried herself to sleep. I wanted to help her, but all I could do for now was just slightly grip onto her dress, showing the bare amount of love I could give. Yes, yes. It's okay. We'll be fine, she says, stroking my head which had only a few strands of purple hair. 1 year has passed. I counted every single day since my birthday, which was today. I lost track a couple of times, but coincidentally, I managed to land on my birthday. Words were still something I couldn't say, but I could make more sounds than just, "da." But, getting points across to my mother was impossible, so eventually, I just gave up and let my mother spoil me. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you, Mom sings. Her voice was coarse as she hadn't had water since last night because she gave her small bowl to me. But, I still enjoyed her singing. And once she gestured for me to blow out the single branch with a tiny flame on top, I did just that, smiling wider than I had ever before. Happy birthday, she says before hugging me tightly. I hugged her back with my not-so-chubby arms. In fact, I was getting a bit too thin due to the lack of nutrients. Occasionally, I would still drink my mother's breast milk, but that was only when she had to eat the food given to us, in order to survive. In the beginning, I tried to get my mother to have all the food to herself by moving my face away from the spoon she put near my lips, but she would get mad and force it into my mouth, so I had no choice but to give in. Cough cough cough. Cough cough cough, my mother suddenly slumped down, coughing into her hand. When she brought back her hand, she tried to hide it from me, but I caught a glimpse of thick red blood. There was no way I could misunderstand something I was all too familiar with. I looked up at my mother, who forced a smile for me, so I smiled back. She overexerted herself for me again. In order to light the branch with a tiny flame, she used what I had figured out was magic. But apparently, the shackle attached to her right ankle suppressed her magic power completely, so in order for her to force some out, she had to sacrifice part of her life force. Damn, I'm losing too much life force. I need to conserve for now. I need to last until he grows up, big and strong, she mutters as she slumps her chin against my shoulder, hiding her exhausted face from me. This was how I found out about all this, my mother talking to herself. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream for help. Anything to help my mother, but I couldn't. I was helpless. Even with the system that I had, I couldn't achieve anything. What is the point of the system? I kept asking myself over the past year. What was the point? The purpose? Anything. I racked my head continuously, but even till now, I couldn't think of anything. With no context, I was absolutely helpless. I then moved away from that question for a bit, but then scarier questions came to mind. Where am I? Who are these people that keep insulting my mother? How did mother become like this? How come I can remember my past life? Or do all reincarnations not lose their past life memories? Too many questions, absolutely no answers. I was miserable, just like my mother. Suddenly, just as I heard my mother's light snores, a ding rang in my ear. A year has passed with no progress, a tutorial will be given. Suddenly, I felt something smash my chest, and I was sent flying backward into the air. But just as I closed my eyes to brace for impact, I felt a familiar floating sensation. I opened my eyes, only to find myself floating in the air with a somewhat ethereal body. But, my real body was on the ground, setting my mother's head to the side and standing up. Tutorial has begun. Chapter 3, a dumb tutorial. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I opened my eyes, only to find myself floating in the air with a somewhat ethereal body. But, my real body was on the ground, setting my mother's head to the side and standing up. Tutorial has begun, huh? What the hell is happening? I tried to move around, but it felt like I was in water, so I began swimming through the air. My mobility was low, but at least I was able to get down to the ground. When I went to touch my real body, my hand slipped through. First step. Wait for the guard to come back. Suddenly, the door to the prison swings open, but it looks different. It was transparent and almost ethereal like myself. Then, the same guard as always stepped through the real wooden door, and he also had an ethereal form. He was expressionless and slightly transparent. Second step. Restrain the guard. Upon placing a ghostly plate with the usual scraps into our cell, my physical body picked up a chipped piece of stone and dashed towards the guard's hand. I was barely able to walk, but my body now was practically sprinting across the cell. My body then grabbed the hand, and with a display of incredible strength, he interlocked his arm in between the steel bars, holding him in place. Third step. Stab, ksh repeatedly, my body stabbed the guard's arm with a piece of chipped stone. Transparent blood sprayed everywhere, my purple hair stained in red. And even when blood sprayed onto my eye, I didn't blink, sending chills to run throughout my phantasmal body. I looked down at my ethereal form and saw goosebumps littering my semi-transparent skin. Fourth step. Pull the arm farther in. The limp arm was pulled farther in, eventually squeezing the guard's shoulder through, revealing the side of the man's neck. Fifth step. Kill, and with one clean stab, my body had killed the guard without me inside of it. Tutorial complete. Would you like to review the tutorial once again? I glanced up at the panels above me and immediately answered with a, no. Comprehensible words finally came out of my mouth, but I was still in my ethereal form, so I knew that was the reason why I could actually talk. Tutorial has ended, can I ask any more quest? But before I could finish asking, I was suddenly sucked back into my body at a speed that caused me to throw up upon returning to my flesh. Oh, baby, are you alright? My mother asks, awakened from me choking on the burning stomach acid in my throat. She sets me upright and begins to pat my back. You're making me want to throw up even more. It was the next day, and I was currently staring at my status while thinking back on what happened yesterday. Were those instructions on how to escape? Is that what the system wanted me to do? I glanced at my mother. She was sleeping. I then flipped over onto my belly and pulled my knees into my chest, allowing me to get up very slowly. In no time, I was walking. But I wanted to try and sprint now, so I took in a deep breath, walked to the back of the cell, and set my eyes on the prison bars ahead of me. I started off with a slow jog, but I immediately fell over, slamming my face against the stone. My nose. It wasn't broken, but it definitely hurt. I glanced up at the cell bars and got up once again. I walked slowly, then jogged slowly but ended up hitting my face against the ground once again. The plan provided by the system was so simple-minded that I had a hard time believing it was real. It was as if one of those monsters had come up with the plan from my previous life. Status, name. None, race. Human, level. 1/10, 0/100, XP needed, HP, 10/10 MP 5/5 SP 5/5. Normal human, strength 0.1. Subhuman, defense 0.1. Subhuman, magic. 0. Normal human, speed 0.1. Subhuman, skills. None. I glanced up at my status and stared coldly at the negative numbers. Yeah. That plan won't work. Maybe if I had incredible strength and speed, but obviously, I don't. Plus, what happens once I kill the guard? I take the keys, always jingling from his belt, but then what? I unlock the cell door on the outside with the help of my mother, but then what? Once we leave that door beyond the cell bars, what happens next? There's no doubt guards are waiting for us. Plus, my mother won't even be able to leave due to the chain attached to her ankle. Even if I manage to remove it, she's so weak from malnutrition and exhaustion that even if she was the greatest mage to ever live, she'd die within a second. Everything about the plan was straight, plain stupidity. Or maybe that wasn't the plan. What if it was showing me the way to go? Maybe it was showing me that I had to leave this place. You have attracted the attention of a few gods, they all wonder how you are so intelligent at a mere age of 1 AH. The panels that popped up in my face scared me so bad I jumped backward, bruising my shoulder. A few of the gods laughed before exiting the viewing area. What the hell? So many things. Too many things that I'm unaware of. I can't do this anymore. And I ended up fainting. Half a year had passed since my birthday, and a new notification appeared. Half a year has passed with no progress, a tutorial will be given. Just like last time, I was slammed out of my body into an ethereal form, but I didn't panic much as I expected this to happen. Over the past half a year, I collected myself and all the information I could get. This included information on the system, though there wasn't much. Information on the guard who always gives us 2 meals a day. Information on the prison cell my mother and I were in. I had formulated a plan that had so many risks you could probably call it suicide. I needed a lot of luck to get through this, but it was my only way now as I've gone through every possibility, and this was the only way. Tup tup tup, my body walked across the room again to find another chipped shard, and thus the tutorial repeated itself again. It went through the same steps as last time but added one more. 6th step. Take the keys, and once my body had taken the ethereal keys, the tutorial ended. Tutorial complete. Would you like to review the tutorial once again? No. Tutorial has ended. My ethereal body gets sucked back into my own body, and the feeling once again made me throw up all over the floor. Due to my mother's exhaustion, she didn't wake up this time, but that was good as I needed her to stay away. Creak, the wooden door opened, and the same guard walked down the 3 stairs and shoved our plate through the small opening in between the bars. Okay, let's begin. But of course, we're not following that stupid tutorial. The gods watch intently. Chapter 4 Manipulation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Okay, let's begin. But of course, we're not following that stupid tutorial. The gods watch intently. Gaga, I say just as the guard is about to leave. Ha! What do you want, you little shit? The guard asks, walking back over to the cell bars and spitting on me. Disgusting. He then exits the room before slamming the wooden door behind him. The thing I've observed the most about this guard is that he's so angry all the time. And it's to the point that sometimes he brings us food with bloodshot eyes. So, though it took me a while, I figured out why he was angry all the time. He was clearly being abused or provoked by something. I didn't need any more information than that, as I now had a root that I could manipulate into a dead stalk that I could bend to my will. The gods are disappointed. What? Disappointed. You wanted me to do what I saw in the tutorial. What a bunch of idiots. Some gods roar in anger by your rude comments. Yeah, piss off. I don't want you here if you're gonna distract me. Some gods stomp off in anger. TSK, just go away. And after a few more hours of waiting, our dinner had come and the man from before once again stomped back into the room, shoving our plate of food through the opening. Gaga. TSK, what do you want? Go suck on your mom's tits or something. He shouts before storming off, slamming the wooden door behind him. I see. It's only a matter of time. A few days have passed, and I had repeated the process a total of 6 times. 3 for brunch. 3 for dinner. He continuously got angrier and angrier at me, but as we were separated by bars, he couldn't do anything. But, he's still not angry enough. I need him to get so angry that he unlocks the cell door and tries to strangle my throat. My mother, who was asleep almost 18 hours a day now, was completely unaware of what was happening. Bam bam bam, the heavy metal boots echoed through the prison walls, and upon him reaching the door, he slammed it open with all his might. The door cracked into pieces as he stomped down the stairs and threw the plate in between the bars. The scraps scattered everywhere, and his presence made me a bit nervous as I could feel endless bloodlust radiating from him. Gaga. I said one last time, even tilting my head a bit. And as soon as his bloodshot eyes looked as if they were about to burst, I stood up. Irk. Irk, sniff sniff sniff, the man dropped to his knees, crying ugly tears. The gods spectating you, laugh at your failed prediciten, perfect. I didn't realize it, but I genuinely smiled for the first time since being reborn in this world. Gad, I say, trying to get the word guard across. I went to smile but suddenly realized I was already smiling, so I just kept it up as the guard glanced at me. It was one hell of a gamble, but it seems it worked out. It was either he got so mad that he burst through the cell door, or he got so angry that he broke down in tears. I mean, I've seen it happen a lot. So much in fact that if I wanted to keep count, I would have lost track halfway through from the sheer amount. It was only a natural reaction for humans overwhelmed with negative emotions. Gad, I say once again, but he ignores me and leaves the room, eyes dry of tears already. The gods spectating you are confused, did you not just read my mind? Asterisk cough 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 cough. Suddenly, a long trail of coughs came from behind me. BDNV and so, about 6 long years have passed. I could finally sprint and jump around, but I couldn't do it for long as my body was extremely frail. But one piece of good news is that I was able to gain the favor of the guard who always brought us food. I pretended to be his ally and let him vent to me, even when I was at an age where one couldn't comprehend a language. He probably thinks of me as his little brother now, but obviously, I was using him. I used him to help keep my slowly dying mother alive as she was growing too sick. I used him to gain information on the outside world. I used him to gain information on pretty much everything I needed, including the layout of the prison I was in. The Grand Magic Tower. A prison created for the sole reason of holding my mother captive. The man still won't tell me why she was imprisoned, but it was probably because he thought I was too young to comprehend the answer. I brought a tiny snack, a voice comes from the slowly creaking door. A guard named Leo had come in the middle of the night to bring my mother and me a cookie. Here, he says, handing it through the bars. I split the cookie into thirds and handed my mother 2/3 while I ate the remaining third. Asterisk cough cough. My mother continued to cough up blood, staining the stone floor with even more splotches of red. You've grown into such a big boy, she says, placing her hand on my cheek. I forced a smile for her and let her rest on the straw pillow I had acquired from Leo. Good night, I say, kissing her on the forehead just as she was about to close her eyes and doze off. All right, I'll see you tomorrow, Leo responds with a smile. He exited the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Asterisk sigh star. What now? Another panel had popped up, but this time it was different. 7.5 years have passed with no progress, a tutorial will be GI. Error, interference by higher being, hidden starting quest. Escape the magic tower has been revealed, you are unable to obtain the hidden reward, quest has been revealed, failure to complete the quest within 1 week will result in death, quest. Escape the magic tower, description. Your mother birthed you in a dungeon meant to keep the strongest of mages, and for some reason, you are forced to spend the rest of your life in it. Escape the dungeon using whatever means necessary, reward. Skill book. Tangible bloodlust, penalty upon failure. Death, time left. 167 hours remaining, huh? What the hell? Have they already gotten so bored with me that they're forcing me to make a move? I needed just 1 more week. But now I have to push it forward a week. I mutter before glancing over at the small cloth beside me. I reached for it and then unraveled it, revealing a small dagger that was a bit too big in my hand. It was the shortest one Leo could find for me, but I didn't plan on using it in combat anyway, so. Suddenly, I heard another ding, signaling even more panels had popped up. You have received a chain of side quests. Complete the first side quest in order to proceed with the next side quest. Kill a guard. Description. As you are too pussy to do anything, if you manage to kill one guard, you will be rewarded with something that could come in handy when the time is needed. Reward. Penalty upon failure. 25% loss of speed for 1 day. Time left 167 hours remaining. Well, I wouldn't say I'm a pussy. Well, I kinda am. But if I'm not, I die. So I just decided to ignore the notification before getting some sleep. But that didn't last quickly, as I suddenly heard my mother cough rapidly, and she began to wheeze as if something was stuck in her chest. Chapter 5 Inevitable Death. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Well, I wouldn't say I'm a pussy. Well, I kinda am. But if I'm not, I die. So I just decided to ignore the notification before getting some sleep. But that didn't last quickly, as I suddenly heard my mother cough rapidly, and she began to wheeze as if something was stuck in her chest. I rushed over to her, wiping the blood from her mouth. She was still sleeping, but her breathing was heavy, and she was burning up badly, so I knew I had to act quickly. I rushed over to the corner of the cell and grabbed a small vial filled with purple liquid. Small bubbles endlessly rose from the bottom, even till I popped open the cork and poured it into my mother's mouth. I sat her up, making sure she could swallow it easily. Everything was quiet upon her taking the medicine, but she began to cough up blood once again for some reason. But once I set my eyes on the blood, I noticed it was coagulated, and parts of it were black. What the hell, I mutter, wiping the black blood from her chin. I rubbed it in between my fingers and felt a jelly-like consistency. Cough 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 cough. The blood my mother continuously coughed up gradually began to turn darker and darker until all of it was pitch black. It looked like slime and felt like jelly to the touch. My baby, are you here? My mother asks. Just sleep. Please, it's okay. I'll always be with you. I don't know when you'll discover the present I left for you, but always remember that I'll be with you, my mother says with a smile, turning her head to look at me. My face was pale, and she saw the dark bags under my eyes due to the lack of sleep. Why don't you mean the thing I see in the air? Cough. Ah, it seems you've already discovered it. I hope you received a good God. So, just survive. You're intelligent cough. My mother breathed in a heavy lump of air before continuing her sentence. You're intelligent. So use that to your advantage. But you already know that, don't you? Orion, she says with a smile. How? I was the greatest sorceress to ever live. If I wasn't able to detect a foreign soul entering my baby's body, then I'd have to give up my title. I'm sorry. For what? That I'm taking so long to help us escape. It's fine. I would have never been able to escape anyway. And it's not even because I'm sick. Cough. Thick black blood spurted from her mouth, but she caught it with her hand. It's because if you ever remove this shackle on my ankle, it will kill me instantly. You know what, let me teach you something before I die. Don't say that. Look, you have to face reality sometimes. I was shocked by my mother's sudden change in attitude, as she had always been extremely kind and loving to me. Do you see these symbols on the shackle? Yes. Do you know what they are? No, I always thought they were just cool patterns. My mother chuckled a bit before running her hand across the cold steel, feeling each indent of the small patterns. These are called runes. They are the basis of magic. They are like a language that you use to cast spells. You can either chant them or write them with a staff or wand in the air. Cough. They can then formulate into skills once you've mastered them enough. Okay, just get some rest. I urge my mother to lay her head down, which she kindly accepts. Good night, my baby. I love you too, and good night, I'll see you tomorrow, right? Emichim. Good night. Orion, and her head falls limp on the straw pillow. Guard POV, I awoke atop my soft, warm bed and immediately shifted out from under the covers. I look out the window and see the city, bustling with activity already despite it being 5 in the morning. I guess I can give them an early snack, I mutter before changing, brushing my teeth, and greeting my superior. Why are you so late? He shouts, his saliva spraying on my face. I'm sorry, sir, but I was, in fact, 30 minutes early. Get me some damn coffee. He shouts, and I suppress my rage very carefully. Yes, sir. I exit the office and feel a vein strain on my neck. This fucking bastard. I swear to God I'll kill you someday, I muttered. Creak. I slowly opened the wooden door leading to the only dungeon in the magic tower. But instead of being greeted by the boy, as usual, I noticed him on his knees, staring blankly at his mother, who seemed paler than before. There were no dry tear marks on his face, so I assumed he was just waiting for her to get up. But I also got a bad feeling from him. Like a beast gathering its bloodlust. I brought a cookie for you to split, I say, walking up to the bars and gently sliding it through as it was slim enough to fit. He didn't respond. ****. Does she need more medicine? Maybe I can bring another snack. I ask but still receive no response. The bad feeling continued to grow, so I felt that leaving was the best choice. But just as I reached for the handle, the boy finally spoke. She died. My heart sunk, and it felt as if my brain had dropped into my chest. Huh. She died. My mother is dead, the boy repeats. That's not possible. That shackle should have kept her alive even if she had just a tiny bit of life force left. Well. Obviously, it didn't. No. That's not possible. Unless. Shit. Boy, tell me. Did she ever use magic on you? I ask, a flood of emotions washing through my mind. What is magic? He asked, and my pupils shrunk. My breathing rapidly began to increase and panic set in. I took the keys from my waist and immediately opened the cell door, rushing towards the limp body of the greatest mage in history. The boy next to me didn't move. I glanced at his face and noticed his dark purple eyes, completely dead. It looked as if he had died, so I made sure he was still alive by shaking him. He slightly glanced at me, so I breathed a sigh of relief. Don't scare me like that, I mutter. First, I checked her heartbeat by pressing my ear against her chest. Nothing. I then checked her pulse. Nothing. I even checked the pulse on her neck. Nothing. What the hell are the guys doing? I shout, my voice echoing against the stone walls. The workers who provide magic to the shackle should have been doing their job without even doing anything. The bracelets should have just been sapping tiny bits of mana. Wait here, I say, storming out of the dungeon. Captain. I have something report. I shout, slamming the door to his office open. Who do you think you are, Lieutenant? He shouts back, but the pent-up rage comes bursting out. I take out the sword slung across my waist and pointed it at him. The greatest mage in history has just died, and you aren't doing anything. You are the one responsible for keeping her alive, and she is now dead. I shout back. Ha! This is why I never informed you that we received orders from the higher-ups to kill her. You would have just gotten in the way. He shouts back. My bloodlust couldn't be contained anymore as I felt it coat my sword. You have activated sword coating, your sword has been wrapped in dense mana. I never liked you from the beginning. The captain mutters while picking up the great sword from behind his office chair. I never liked you either, I reply. Chapter 6 Escape. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I never liked you from the beginning. The captain mutters while picking up the great sword from behind his office chair. I never liked you either, I reply. My sword shimmered a low red glow while the captain's greatsword was coated in a thick and bright red light. You're the one who killed my parents, weren't you? Yeah. What about it? He says, his face warping into a psychotic smile. You bastard. Orion POV, wait here, Leo says and storms out of the dungeon, a nostalgic bloodlust leaking from him. Asterisk Psi star. Mother. Goodbye, I say, kissing her on the forehead before getting up and gathering a sack of materials I might need when escaping this place. My eyes weren't determined. My eyes weren't excited. They were just dead. This was utterly suicide without motivation, but I had no other reason to stay here any longer. Originally, I planned on trying to convince Leo to let me out of the cell for a bit, and then I would start my plan from there, but it seems my mother dying was a blessing and a curse in disguise. I glanced at my status, staring at the new piece on the panel. Status, name. Orion, race. Human, level. 1/10, 1/100, XP needed, HP, 10/10 MP 5/5 SP 5/5. Normal human, strength 0.1. Subhuman, defense 0.1. Subhuman, magic. 0. Normal human, speed 0.1. Subhuman, skills. None, and so, I stepped out of the cell for the first time in forever. It wasn't revolutionary, but I could definitely feel a bit better than when I was locked in that cell, with absolutely no sure hope of escaping. Asterisk Psi star. Let's move, I mutter, walking up the steps and pushing the wooden door open. Time seemed to slow down as the world outside the cell was revealed. A tower made of quartz and stone, is what I heard from Leo, the guard, but I never expected it to be this big. Well, I mean, the inside was pretty compact, but when I glanced at one of the walls, which was just entirely a window, I saw that we were at least on the 100th floor as we were above the clouds. What the hell? Boom! Suddenly, the tower shook, shifting it to the side. I used my hands to balance myself by slamming my palms against the smooth stone floor. And suddenly, I heard a crack from above me, so I went to run away but stumbled on my own feet. Burk. Leo had landed in front of me, hundreds of small scratches along his chest, and a man built like a mountain, jumped through the hole in the ceiling and landed on Leo's stomach. He knocked the wind out of him, causing Leo to turn his head to the side and see me. His eyes widened from shock. Well, I guess that's it. You can always be replaced so. Enough talking, Leo says, lifting up his knee and kneeing the man built like a mountain in the family jewels. He hunched over in pain before Leo swung his sword up, just barely missing the man's heart but managing to land a large laceration across his leg. Bone had been exposed, and the man immediately felt it, causing him to cry out in pain. It was a blood-curdling scream, but Leo lunged towards me instead of finishing off the man, scooping me up from the ground. Let's go. I'll repay my wrongdoings, I smiled slightly, but my eyes were completely numb. Heh, maybe you should work on smiling with your eyes, Leo chuckled, clearly misunderstanding my smile. We dashed through the hallway, and eventually, we ran into two guards clad in metal armor that glowed a slight purple. Damn it, A.rank guards, Leo mutters, raising his sword above his head and swinging down with full force. A blade made of the same red glowy stuff surrounding Leo's sword burst out from the blade. It then split into two, cutting both guards down. Is that magic or something else? Maybe I should keep this guy alive for a bit longer just so I can learn a few more things about this world. Lieutenant. A loud cry comes from down the hall. But just as I was about to look back, Leo slammed against a quartz wall, allowing him to redirect his speed towards the stairs that spiral downwards. Though the stairs were as long as his foot, he still ran down them as if we were on flat land. Whoosh! Suddenly, a blast of air came from below us, sending me flying through the air, but Leo caught me by my leg before dragging me into his chest. He held me like a ball as he ran down the stairs, fighting off the occasional guard that would try and interrupt us. His face was filled with rage. Ah, it seems everybody here pissed him off. That's good. More. More. And after a few minutes of repeating the process, we arrived halfway down the tower. Upon arriving at the next floor, I glanced out one of the windows and saw the outside world. But it looked strange. Buildings I had never seen before. Strange clothing that covered up more than needed. Irregular forms of transportation that sped on a black road. Most would have been excited at the sight of this, but the only thing I could think about were the different types of people. There were bound to be people just like the ones in this tower. Bloodthirsty and cruel. It's not like I didn't live in that type of society before, but as everything looked so different, those aspects would be displayed in various different ways that I'm unaware of. But first, I need to survive. Leo tore through all the guards on the present floor in an instant, with his bloodlust also reacting to his raging emotions. The bloodlust began to turn into a floating red substance that felt as if it was about to eat me. Lieutenant. The same voice cried out, but we were already on our way down the stairs that led to the bottom of the tower. I saw familiar grass and trees surrounding the area, but I still couldn't feel any excitement. Boom boom boom, the floors above us cracked, letting the mountain-like man from before tear through the tower. He rapidly approached us and I knew that we wouldn't make it to the bottom in time, so I placed a few traps down from my sack that I still somehow held onto. They were small caltrops that I made from chipping the knife that Leo gave me into pieces. I was hoping these would land in a few weak points that could hopefully slow him down. Boom boom boom, almost there. Leo mutters through gritted teeth. Boom boom boom, and suddenly, I felt weightless. I was sent flying into the air again as a man with one massive greatsword tears apart the spiraling staircase. We were sent flying out of the tower, and I quickly plummeted to the itchy green grass below. But I didn't panic as Leo reached out for me and tucked me in once again. Bam! Just before we hit the ground, Leo had turned me away from the ground, causing his back to slam against the grass. Leo groans as the metal coating us suddenly gets absorbed back into his body. Was that magic as well? But before I could try and think any deeper, somebody else slammed against the ground, sending a shockwave through the air. Arc. Chapter 7 Cruel End. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Was that magic as well? But before I could try and think any deeper, somebody else slammed against the ground, sending a shockwave through the air. Arc. The roar of pain shook the trees and blew the grass below us. As we glanced up, we saw the mountain-like man from before, holding both of his eyes as they bled uncontrollably. Ah! It worked. What? Did shards of glass get in his eye? No, that's not possible. His defense is so high that mere glass wouldn't be able to pierce it, Leo says as he sets me to the side and slowly stands up. VWOM. Leo swung his sword upwards, sending a red blade flying towards the man. Though he managed to block it somehow, Leo's random swing was used to just close the distance between them. Ha ha ha. It's been a while since I've been this injured. The man laughs to himself despite his pitiful state. His right leg was hanging on by a thread, both of his eyes had been cut open by my makeshift caltrops, and it seemed like he broke both of his feet after slamming through each floor of the stone and quartz tower. Tup tup tup. Leo had fully closed the gap now and took a lower stance with his sword at his side. It was a stance I'd never seen before, but it still strangely worked as all the power was transferred from his legs to his arms and then to his sword. Shing, that you could hear the sword ripping through the air due to how powerful it was, but it was still deflected. The man with his great sword deflected it with the hilt, breaking it, but pushing the approaching blade away from a life-threatening injury. Arg! The man shouted as his bloodlust exploded from his body. I swore I could see a skull behind him. The man's left arm had been completely cut off, staining the lush grass with seemingly endless amounts of blood. Leo had retreated back next to me, but he coughed up a large mouthful of blood that forced him to take a knee. There was a slight gloss over his eyes as he glanced at me. Hee, I got this, he says, using his sword to help him stand. It seems he took the full brunt of the bloodlust explosion, most likely injuring his internal organs as he coughed up a lot of blood. I still didn't know much of this world, so I tried to absorb as much information from this fight as possible. Ha 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 ha. Let's do this, Lieutenant. The man shouts, a crater appearing beneath his feet before he dashed towards Leo, who could barely react to his swing. It tore through the air with a loud boom. This one was much more impressive compared to Leo's clean and accurate swing as the cut shook the air. I was blown back several feet, and as I had a negative defense, I managed to sprain my wrist after trying to stop myself with my hand. Leo glanced at me once again, worried about me, so the man took this chance to kick him right in the ribs, sending him flying into a tree. His eyes rolled back into his head, but the man wasn't done as he cocked his great sword over his head and dashed right at Leo. Come on. Wake up. But Leo didn't wake up. The man quickly approached him at a speed I didn't know was humanly possible, until he completely stopped, the tip of his sword just about to reach Leo's head. Ha! What happened? I got up while holding my sprained wrist and slowly circled around until I got a full front view of the mountain-like man. He's dead. I muttered to myself. His face was completely pale and shriveled up. But despite his weak appearance, his stance held firm, his eyes even refusing to close as the eyeballs dried up. He. Ha 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 ha. Finally. I'm free. I'm free. My eyes were invigorated with just the tiniest bit of life. Boy. I hear somebody call out. My body froze in place, and my head turned towards the voice. Are you safe? I can't see or hear you. Hand me the potion from inside my pocket. Don't worry. It's not destroyed. The design was made by your mother, so of course, it wouldn't break. Slowly, I walked over to Leo, who I presumed to be dead. Subconsciously, my eyes grew colder with each passing second. You have taught me so many things about this world. I mutter as I reach towards Leo's pocket underneath his suit of armor. Ah, I can finally hear you. I'm so glad you're alive. I'm sure I haven't repaid you yet, so I will serve under you for the rest of my life. I swear on my knight's honor, Leo says with a gleeful smile as I pull out a small vial filled with red liquid. And, there is one thing I like about you, I mutter as I reach for the broken sword beside Leo's limp body. Ah, I'm glad. I'm glad you can still like something about me despite me putting you and your mother through such torturous conditions. Leo smiles before the sound of a liquid being chugged echoes through the air. It was strange. Such a soft sound echoed louder than the howling wind. Ha! Boy, what are you doing? No, I loved something about you, boy. Boy. What are you doing? I loved how great of a pawn you were, I muttered, my eyes colder than death. My pitiful strength was nowhere near enough to cut his head off, but I did manage to cut his wind tube. Leo gasped for air as I dropped the sword to the ground. Killing him seemed like a waste at first, but there were things I planned on doing that he would never agree with. And it's quite funny how I learned all these things from him. He taught me about this new world and life, yet I still killed him. Having him serve under me wasn't a bad idea, but I knew how he was. He thought of me as his little brother rather than somebody he could fully serve, especially with the events that happened with his captain. I doubt the loyalty would last long. I massaged my freshly healed wrist before looking up at the panels before me. 1 XP, you have completed the quest. Escape the magic tower, time remaining. 136 hours, reward has been granted. Suddenly, a book appeared in my hand. The leather feeling was nostalgic as I rubbed it in between my fingers. The flimsy and coarse, tan paper felt nice as I flipped through each page. It was in a language I could understand, but the calligraphy was messy. It was like the author tried to make it as fancy as possible but utterly failed in the end. On each page that I read, I felt myself becoming more and more absorbed into the book as if it was pulling me in, holding me hostage until I finished it. I began to read each page faster and faster, the dark bags under my eyes slowly fading away. My eyes became reinvigorated with life. And then... creak. 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 The chirping of crickets woke me up from my trance-like state. I snapped my head up, noticing the sun had fallen and the moon had risen in its place. I snapped my head up even farther to the point I felt my neck strain as I stared up into the sky. The moon is right there, so. It's a bit past midnight. Suddenly, I heard a loud ding. I glanced downwards while uncraning my neck before gazing at the panels in front of me. Your cruelness has impressed a few gods, your heartlessness makes a few of the gods yearn to support you, you have completed the side quest. Kill a guard, reward has been granted, the next side quest will be revealed once ready. A small key appeared in my hand. It was golden, as if it was the key to a royal treasury. But, the panels didn't end there. You have successfully learned Tangible Bloodlust. Would you like a tutorial? Unknown POV, Ares. A loud voice booms throughout the metal castle. What do you want? A man sitting on a grand throne made from thousands of weapons responds. Don't fuck with me. How dare you take my source? I'll kill you. The voice of a woman continues to boom through the castle. The assistants beside the man sitting on the throne shook in fear as a woman twice the size of them stormed forward, bloodlust so thick it began to break time and space. Oh. Athena. You want to go? Then let's settle this once and for all. The man stood up from his throne, and a heavy stench of blood moved with him as he lifted up his hand. The woman flinched at the slight movement and decided to retreat, storming off in anger. Now. He might have been weaker than I thought. But there is still unseen potential, the man mutters, sitting back in his throne. Chapter 8 First Skill and Historic Event. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You have successfully learned Tangible Bloodlust. Would you like a tutorial? I stared at the panel in front of me, confused as to what any of this meant. Well, the tutorial I kind of understood. It's just successfully learning, what? Tangible Bloodlust. Is that like, wait. Status, name. Orion, race. Human, level. 1/10, 1/100, XP needed, HP, 10/10 MP 5/5 SP 5/5. Normal human, strength 0.1. Subhuman, defense 0.1. Subhuman, magic. 0. Normal human, speed 0.1. Subhuman, skills. Tangible Bloodlust. Ah, so it is a skill, I mutter, and just as I was about to accept the tutorial, I heard a clatter from behind me. But, I didn't look back until I hid behind a tree, gazing at the massive tower. Slowly, the ground began to rumble as if an earthquake was approaching. The tower swayed in the air like a flag. And as I had a bad feeling that staying any closer to the tower would cause me to end up in more trouble, I ran farther into the forest. A historic event will begin. Ascension of the greatest mage in history has begun. VWOM. The tower was suddenly enveloped in a pillar of white light. You are witnessing a historic event. A slight buff will be applied for 24 hours. All of a sudden, my body felt lighter than a feather, as if I was flying on the ground. VWOM. But before I could check out the buff applied to me, the white beam suddenly doubled in size, almost killing me in a flash. I stumbled back, tripping on my own feet as I raised my head to get a full view of the white beam. I was in complete awe, unable to close my dropped jaw. What the hell, I mutter. All of a sudden, the white beam shrunk into a pea-size beam, but I noticed the entire magic tower had disappeared. Ascension complete, the goddess of mana and alchemy watches over the world. I didn't know what to do from there. Like always, I had too many questions but too few answers. Orion, suddenly I heard a voice from behind me, frightening me. But strangely, it sounded familiar. I slowly turned my head towards the familiar voice from behind me. A goddess draped in beautiful blue and white robes floated before me. I choked on my words, not from her beauty but from her familiar face. "It's okay. It's okay. I told you I'd see you again," she mutters, pulling me towards her with a strange invisible force. It was warm. "I'm sad that I couldn't teach you anything, but I'm glad you escaped that prison," my mother says before drifting off into the sky. I thought I would have cried, but for some reason, I struggled to produce any emotions. I didn't know if it was due to shock or exhaustion, but all I could mutter was, "Goodbye." It was currently the next day, and I wasn't doing so well. My body was sore all over, and my mind was a bit numb from the number of events I had gone through yesterday. First, my mother died. Second, I escaped the tower. Third, my mother ascended into what I presume to be a goddess. ****. Let's just do this. Yes, I agree to the tutorial, and like before, I was punched out of my own body into an ethereal form. I floated in the air as I watched my body stand up on its own. Tutorial has begun. First step. Activate the skill. My body muttered something, causing panels to appear next to it. Then my body raised its hand slowly, causing a red substance to appear around my entire body as if it was a suit of armor. But, the raised hand moved through the thick, red substance as if it was just water. Second step. Imagine the form you want your aura to take. My body closed its eyes before the substance expanded to the very top of the tree line. And then, my body waved the raised hand down, causing the substance to turn into a wave that bashed against the trees. But my expectations weren't exceeded or disappointed as the tree had a small dent in it, but it was in an ethereal form, so I knew the actual tree wasn't damaged. Tutorial complete. Would you like to review the tutorial once again? No, I muttered, causing me to be sucked back into my body. The feeling was nauseating as always, causing me to throw up onto the grass, emptying my stomach, which held absolutely nothing besides the red potion from before and my stomach acid. The acid burned my throat as it came up, but my body couldn't stop hurling until I felt completely drained. Tutorial has ended. An insatiable hunger eats through your mind, an insatiable thirst shrivels your throat, your health begins to deteriorate. So hungry, and thirsty, I muttered, but nothing was in sight. The magic tower had completely disappeared, and I couldn't see any animals from where I was. Why do I feel so exhausted? I mutter once again before checking my status, desperate to figure something out. And upon opening it, something immediately caught my attention. HP 9/10 MP 0/5 SP 0/5. Normal human whatever SP and MP were, they had completely run dry. But, I didn't feel like this before, so I connected it to the tutorial, which used my newly acquired skill. And though it seemed stupid, I activated the skill again, even after pretty much figuring out what had happened. Unable to activate tangible bloodlust, insufficient mana, insufficient stamina. Nice. Very nice. I finally figured out what the MP and SP stood before. Immediately, I assumed MP was mana as it had an M in it, and SP is stamina because it has an S in it. But even though I answered some of the questions in my pile, I couldn't ignore the fact that I felt like I was dying. I need to eat something, and so I glanced around, my eyes landing on the corpse of Leo and the large man. I swallowed a large drop of saliva before I crawled my way over to their bodies. My pupils seemingly vibrated as a drop of sweat ran down my cheek. I reached my hand towards the large man's coat and ripped it off with all of the might I could muster. Thankfully it was already pretty much torn to shreds, so I actually had a chance with my feeble strength. And so I slowly opened my mouth as I got on my knees. Chomp! I bit down, ripping the skin away due to my pitiful strength. I bit down again, this time reaching the flesh, juices flowing down the side of my mouth. I bit down again and again until I reached a hard center that I couldn't gnaw my way through. Asterisk psi star. That was refreshing, I mutter, throwing the apple core to the side. After wiping the fresh apple juice from my mouth, I searched the other pocket but found absolutely nothing to my disappointment. Damn it. I'm still hungry, I mutter. But now, I could move slightly. The apple's flesh helped sate part of my hunger, and the juices helped moisten my parched throat. Okay, let's get moving. I'll find something on my way to the CI. But before I could finish talking, a loud beating sound came from above me. Chapter 9 Free. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Okay, let's get moving. I'll find something on my way to the CI. But before I could finish talking, a loud beating sound came from above me. Bum 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 bum. I looked up and saw something flying in the air. Its body was longer than its width, and it had spinning blunt blades atop of it that helped it seemingly levitate in the air. And suddenly, a rope was dropped down from one of the holes towards the middle of the frame. Without hesitation, I ran deeper into the forest as I saw a few men slide down the rope. I had a terrible feeling coming from them, and for a while now, these bad feelings were pretty accurate, so I listened to my gut and ran. This time I didn't trip up on my feet. I even began to run faster than my maximum in my past life. It felt like I was one with the wind as I intertwined between the trees. A gust of wind blew past me, rattling the leaves and fluttering my dark purple hair. But suddenly, I realized that I had forgotten everything back at the two corpses, including the few materials that I had kept throughout the years. I cursed myself internally as I had given into panic. I still had a few seconds left until the men hit the bottom of the rope, which I could have used, but in the end, I panicked and escaped as quickly as possible. I had an idea of where I was going but didn't know what was awaiting me past this forest. The magic tower me and my mother were kept in was built atop a large hill, and at the bottom of the hill was a city named New York City. According to Leo, it was the closest city next to the tower, so I of course made my way there. Huff 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 huff. My breathing was so heavy I had trouble controlling it. My vision was tinted in a light blue as I began to grow light-headed. My bare feet hurt from running downhill. And all of these factors were enough to convince me to stop running. Stopping was troublesome as I had built up so much momentum, and when I tried to slam my feet against the dirt, I just tumbled over and over down the hill. The world around me spun until my back slammed against a fallen tree. I groaned in pain as I regained my balance and rubbed my aching back. Huff huff. It seems my defense also increased with the buff. Huff huff. Wait, does that mean my strength also increased? I mutter, but before testing, I did my best to regain my breath. I was wheezing as my body had absolutely no conditioning whatsoever. I probably could have worked out in the prison cell, but my body was so weak that I couldn't make any progress. Phoo. Okay, after regaining my breath, I scanned the area around me to ensure I wasn't being followed. Nobody was around, not even a single animal. I was a bit suspicious of how there were absolutely no animals or bugs around, but still proceeded with my test as I walked up to a tree. It was tall. Really tall. Much taller than any tree I had seen in my past life. Do the trees get taller the lower you go down this hill? I decided to set away my questions for now and ran my fingers along with the rough, dark brown bark. It was sturdier than the trees I had seen up there. I took in a long breath before winding up my fist and punching the tree as hard as I could. Knock. My knuckles collided with the wood, doing absolutely no damage. And as I stumbled back, I gripped my fist in pain. Luckily nothing had broken, but my fist would definitely be bruised for the next few days. Ah. Shit. That was the most pathetic thing I had ever done in my life. Well, both lives, I mutter, smiling to myself as I lay on the soft dirt coated in fallen orange leaves. I stared up at the canopy above me, each corner filled with orange and brown leaves, but they weren't dying, in fact, they were healthier than ever. This is nice, maybe I should stay here for a bit. But just as I had that thought my stomach rumbled so loudly it echoed throughout the forest. I sighed before getting up and continuing down the hill. The same beautiful forest surrounded me, with the trees getting taller and taller. Oh, in front of me was an orange bush with bright yellow berries dotted all around it. But, it was so obvious that the berries were poisonous, so I avoided them. This reminds me of survival training when I was first drafted for the army. We all needed to survive independently in the wild for at least 2 weeks. If we got hurt, we had to take care of the wounds ourselves. If we were hungry, we had to kill any animal we spotted in order to survive. If we ran into a water source, we were forced to drink it, despite most of the sources screaming that they had tons of bacteria and diseases floating in them. It was a grueling and harsh 2 weeks, but I finally managed to survive with a few warriors picking me up from deep within the forest. That was a terrible time, I mutter. The sun had fallen, the moon replacing its spot in the sky. I filled my belly a bit with a few bluish berries that I assumed to be safe to eat and rested on a fallen log coated in some moist moss. It wasn't the best, but it was still much better than a hard stone floor. My eyes slowly closed as my mind began to drift off into nothing. The buff has been removed. When I awoke the next day, I felt refreshed. My back wasn't aching, but I was very thirsty and just a tiny bit hungry. But, there was nothing around, so I was forced to move even farther down the mountain in hopes of finding a water source or more fruit. I don't have any materials to make a trap, and I can't really hunt an animal myself now due to the buff wearing off. So I can't do much. My journey down the hill was much longer than I expected. I initially thought I could reach the city yesterday by sunset, but not one of the strange buildings was in sight. Huff 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 huff, it was going to take a while to get my stamina up, so I had to take breaks in between the long jogs down the mountain. The scenery was breathtaking at first, but now it was a bit repetitive and boring. I also practiced a bit with tangible bloodlust, and after only a few practices, I gave up for now as it would drain my mana and stamina almost instantly, leaving me immobile for half an hour. Okay, let's go now, I mutter after popping another few bluish berries in my mouth. They were sweet and gave me a boost of energy as I made my way down the mountain. But this jog was a bit different as I had reached the end of the tree line, but behind it was a large cliff face. And towards the bottom of the cliff face was a massive hole that led into the cliff and traveled downwards. It looked like an endless abyss from where I was now due to how dark it was inside. I debated with myself whether I should check it or not, but eventually came to the conclusion that going in there was pure stupidity, and walking along the cliff face would hopefully help me find the city. Chapter 10 Dungeon 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It looked like an endless abyss from where I was now due to how dark it was inside. I debated with myself whether I should check it or not, but eventually came to the conclusion that going in there was pure stupidity, and walking along the cliff face would hopefully help me find civilization. So, I made my way down the hill, onto the first flat piece of land I had found in a while, and walked along the wall, in the direction I thought the city was in. But, as soon as I got close to the wall, I felt a chill get sent down my spine. A drop of sweat ran down the back of my neck. I turned around very slowly and saw the cave from before. Nothing was there. I began my sprint along the wall, but I felt something weird. I sprinted for a couple of seconds, then paused. I sprinted for another few seconds, then paused. I glanced down at my feet and stacked a couple of rocks on top of each other before sprinting past it. I accidentally tripped over something, and when I looked back, I saw my stacked pile of rocks, now toppled over. What? I didn't know how to react but decided to approach this carefully. First, I confirmed it by stacking the rocks again and then walking forward. I tripped on the rocks. Upon confirming that I was going in circles, I then tried a different approach. I stacked the rocks once again but walked in the opposite direction, towards the cave. And, nothing ended up happening. I continued to walk forward but never ended up tripping on the stacked rocks, which gradually grew farther from me. Though I didn't want to believe it, I kept walking towards the cave with no signs of interruption. My heartbeat gradually grew faster. My sweat dripped into my eyes, stinging them before I wiped them away. I felt so much tension in the air that I thought I would be able to cut with a small butter knife. I soon arrived in front of the cave as it was in the direction I was walking in. It was pitch black inside, but I could see that it went down into the ground rather more into the cliff face. My eyes darted back and forth from the pile of stones to the pitch-black cave. Ugh! Are you kidding me? I muttered before trying one more detour, which was still running along the wall, but now away from the city. I walked past the cave. But, the same thing happened. I piled up a new stack of rocks and then ran along the wall, then tripping, slamming my nose against the dirt. Thankfully, nothing broke, but my eyes teared up a bit. I didn't know if I was tripping balls or what, but I did know one thing. That I had to enter the cave. I tried every direction, but I kept appearing next to the dark cave. And so, eventually, I gave up and stood before the entrance. Swallowing a large drop of saliva, I felt my nerves calm down just a bit before I entered. I lifted my foot and stepped into the cave. Nothing happened. I lifted my other foot and stepped farther into the cave. Nothing happened. A bone-chilling sensation wafted through the air with the slight breeze that came from down within the darkness. I walked farther and farther until I couldn't see the light of the entrance anymore. Silence. Darkness. Sweat dripped from the back of my neck, and I managed to squeeze out a quiet, "Hello. You have entered the dungeon. Iron Ant's Nest, recommended level 25, warning. It is recommended to bring a party, the dungeon. Iron Ant's Nest takes pity on you upon seeing your stats. The boss of the dungeon is disappointed by your weak stats. The boss of the dungeon has decided to let you go, I shout upon seeing the panels appear in the darkness, causing me to fall back onto my already bruised tailbone. Shit. That hurts. I read the panels intently but couldn't quite comprehend what the panels were about. What is a boss? Like maybe the king of this cave. It was a stretch, but I had a good feeling about my guess. But also, what is an iron ant anyway? A new species. And as if the gods wanted to answer my question, a large 3-foot tall ant, bigger than any wolf I had ever seen, came out of the darkness. Its metal exoskeleton glimmered slightly in the darkness of the cave, allowing me to see the hundreds of other ants behind it. The boss of the dungeon has given you a few escorts, that you just want me to come back with stronger stats so you can eat me, I mutter with a weary smile, sweat dripping down my back. The ant in front of me clicked its mandibles once, creating a spark that flew through the room, revealing even more ants than before. Okay, I'll leave, I give in, raising my hands and retracing my steps into the darkness. The metal ants followed behind me, their iron-plated feet clacking against the stone floor. A few minutes later, I arrived at the entrance, and upon stepping out of the cave and into the forest, I felt something go through my body. It felt as if I had walked into a lake. When I turned my head around to check it out, I saw a thin, wavy piece of glass covering the entire entrance. And then, the ants were right behind it, watching me intently. Can you not leave? I asked them, not expecting an answer. It was more of me talking to myself rather than the ants, but somehow, I got an answer. The boss of the dungeon orders for you to leave. A familiar smile crept onto my face as I saw the ants leave from the entrance and saw them click their mandibles once more, creating a spark. Fuck going to New York City. I can get so much XP without even doing much. I lay on a bed made of leaves, snacking on the last bluish berry that made me pucker my lips a bit due to its sour feature. XP, huh? I heard about it from Leo, it was the blood of the world. But, humans residing in this world could also obtain this blood by killing monsters created across the globe. I only learned about monsters, but I now began to connect the pieces of information. Dungeons lead to monsters. Monsters lead to XP. XP leads to leveling up. Leveling up leads to new evolutions and classes. Is this Earth? I question for the first time since being reborn. I always thought it was different due to how many new things there were, but I had this feeling that this was still Earth. There were so many changes, yet I still believed this was Earth. I must be going insane, I mutter before looking through the small hole in the canopy, staring at the stars. Tomorrow. I'll level up. I'll definitely level up. And just before I fell asleep, I glanced over at the crunchy and dead leaves beside me.